All right, welcome back, class. So I know that the class just now was a little heavy, but are you all doing okay? Are you fine? The ones online, are you fine? Okay, one has responded. Everybody else, are you good? Okay, I hope you all are awake at least. I'm not able to see you, but I hope the class wasn't too heavy. Maybe the next one might also be a little heavy because we're going to be looking at suicide. Um, Yeah, I know. It's just how it's flowing. But then we'll look at this and we will have um, drills. We will end today's class with drills. We will not end because I know that it's been a little heavy. So makes sense for us to do drills because I don't know, maybe it might be a little bit more fun. But before I begin on the chapter on suicide, um, does anybody have any questions with the previous class and the things that we spoke about? Okay, I'm assuming that that's a no. So I will proceed to share my screen. Can you see the screen online? All right, thank you. Okay, so let's look at suicide. I know it's a heavy topic, it's something that's also not openly discussed about, right? But with how the world is moving with today's day and age, I think it's just very important for us to have open discussions, talk about it. Please ask questions. If you didn't ask questions in abuse, I understand, but especially when it's coming to suicide, it would be great if you could ask questions, clear your doubts, because I'm pretty sure most of us remain clueless, right? We're not sure what to do, how to do, when to do it. Should I talk about it? Should I not? Do I ask questions if I have? So please utilize this space to ask questions and figure out your doubts because this is the only way you'd be able to clarify them and be able to help, right? And especially if you're moving towards the area of counseling, this is one of the most common things that come up. Okay, so what is suicide, right? Okay, I'll not answer that. What is suicide? What do you think suicide is? Taking one's life deliberately without being time for you to go yet, right? Now, suicide is something that is a major social issue, if I can say that, because almost one person in every 40 seconds die of suicide. The stats are really, really high. If it's one person every 40 seconds in 10 minutes, a lot, a lot of people, right? And in 5 minutes alone, it's going to be a lot, right? So understand that this stats doesn't mean that everywhere, like, in one place that might happen, but across the world, right? This is the current stats that's running around, especially when you look at the stats of WHO. They update, they update it every year. It's still holding at one every 40 seconds. Now that's huge because we all know how precious life is, right? And for somebody to go through pain so much that they think that I choose to end it all, it's a lot. Because biologically, your innate nature is to survive, right? If you fall into water, for example, even if it's an amusement park, I can use my example here. I don't know how to swim, but I would love sitting on the water rides, right? I know for a fact that I'll go inside. Like the force of the speed will push you down. But then if you're inside water, the first thing is to come up for air. Your whole body will fight to survive and keep you alive every single day. That's why your heart keeps on beating, your cell keeps regenerating. Some cells regenerate every 12 hours, some every 24 hours, some 48 hours, some a week. But your entire body, every day, every second, is pushing you to live, right? Now, imagine what a person might be going through in their minds, that they may be like, okay, let me cause myself harm and die. We all know how much like a little paper cut will also bring in so much pain. It burns. A paper cut also really hurts. Now imagine you choosing to put a knife in any part of your body to remove yourself. It takes a lot, right? I can't even think of like, I'll voluntarily not, you'll not prick yourself with a pin, right? Because you know that'll cause you pain. Now imagine what might be going through a person's mind when they're saying, I will just choose to end my life, that's it, no more, right? So the amount of hopelessness that the person will carry is tremendous, right? So it's really important for us to not just view it as something that is just like, or maybe the person is too weak, maybe they choose not to want to live anymore. It doesn't work like that, right? Because biologically you want to live, you'd want to survive, and it takes a lot of guts to come to a place where you choose not to live anymore, right? So it's the third leading cause of death in the world, and it mostly focuses on that age group of like teenagers, adolescents, right? And when you go more than that, the ratio is more towards men than female. Like as the age group becomes higher, it's more men than female who attempt suicide and try to kill themselves, right? So suicide is a behavior that's caused by self-directed injurious behavior towards yourself, solely with the intent to wanting to die, right? So a suicide attempt, sometimes it could be non-fatal, right? But it's a direct attempt to potentially injure yourself as a result of things that might be happening in and around, right? So a suicide attempt might not result in injury, right? So what is a suicide attempt? A suicide attempt is when you try to hurt yourself so that you can remove yourself from the world and choose not to live anymore. But sometimes not all attempts are fatal, but every suicide attempt has to be taken seriously. Whether it happened, it didn't happen, whether they just drank like 5 tablets, 6 tablets, or they drank like phenyl, anything, right? It is to be taken seriously, right? Now, one thing for us to be able to understand that when a person chooses to be in this space, just I don't know how much to emphasize this, but try to imagine what's going on in their minds. Like they're coming to a point when they're like, I don't want to survive anymore. Like I know sometimes you all have bad days and be like, I think I just want to die. Do you actually want to die? Of course not. But we're just using it so lightly. Like I think I want to die. Like I'm going to die. I didn't even get that. Like how will I survive? Like just be very careful with the choice of words that we're using sometimes, right? Because people are literally fighting for their lives. If you look, especially in the hospitals, the one who are suffering through a lot, they're all just fighting to survive. Nobody wants to die, right? But if a person voluntarily chooses to die, a lot a lot is going on through their minds, right? A few terms just for us to be familiar with. Of course, it's just suicidal ideation that's written on your notes, but I'll just run through a few other terms for us to understand a little better. So, suicide ideation refers to thinking about, considering, or planning about suicide, right? Maybe the first could be having thoughts about death, right? Preoccupations with how you'd want to kill yourself, what you'd do, right? Maybe you'll have the whole plan in your head. Okay, maybe I'll go here, I'll get this, I'll come back, and this is what I would do, right? So that entire process is called ideation, right? Basically, like, when you form an idea in your head, but this is specifically when it comes to self harm and moving towards suicide, is called suicidal ideation. Now, a suicidal attempt is deliberate self harm that you've been trying to do to yourself, but it's non-fatal and you haven't been successful, right? A lot of people who tend to come for counseling, most of them would have attempted it at some point but didn't. It didn't happen, right? They might have taken 6 7 tablets thinking that they would, like, just die in their sleep or something. But then they wake up like 6 7 hours later and they're like, oh no, I'm still here, right? God's grace, I think, purely, right? But these cases happen. But sometimes, that even if it's not a fatal attempt, taking such a big dose of a certain medication will bring internal body changes, right? Like if you push in a certain capacity of paracetamol inside your body, and it changes, right, with body weight, body mass, the person may not die, but they'll go through a lot of changes inside. They have nausea, dizziness, they might throw up, and it might lead to slowly, like, their liver functioning stopping, right? So many things can happen, right? And it can all happen in a span of like minutes, especially when they've not taken. I'm not saying that you should. If they did not take enough to die, their body will still go through so much internally. So it's very important that medical help ASAP, right? If somebody has told you that, even if they said I've taken like 5 pills of paracetamol, maybe hospital ASAP, detox, right? Never take any of these things lightly, because depending on the person's body mass, weight, age, changes will happen. You're pushing chemicals inside your body, right? So that's that. Next is, you also have something called as non-suicidal self-injury, right? So non-suicidal self-injury may look like cuts to the hand, right? Mostly that's how it looks like. It can look like burning yourself a little bit, right? It can look like scratching yourself, right? So all of these things will not kill you, but they will harm you in some way or the other, right? So now, there are many reasons why a person may choose to kill themselves, right? Not There are many things, right? But sometimes all of them may tend to overlap. Now let's just look at a few of them and see how they look like. So the first one is suffering from clinical depression. Now, when somebody goes through the clinical type of depression, is not so simple as like this person is always sad. There is a genuine imbalance in the chemicals in their brain, which makes it a little hard for them to want to, like, they genuinely want to be happy, but they can't, right? And if somebody is going through it for so long, they may not be able to do so many things, and they might feel, okay, I don't want to live life feeling sad all the time. What's the point? I'm always sad, I can't even be happy, right? Gives them reasons to choose not to want to live, right? Sometimes if they're going through a very low phase, they may not have the energy to carry it out. It comes to that extent, right? They don't have the energy to even like get out of bed. But sometimes if they have the slight energy, they'll be like, okay, maybe during that time they may think of what they want to do, and they'll eventually carry it out when things are fine, right? Next is when you are going through alcoholism and there's drug abuse, right? Why? Why do you think when a person is under the influence of alcohol and drugs, it's easier for them to attempt suicide? What happens to a person when they take alcohol and substances? It affects their body organs. Okay, that's one. What else? What else happens to a person when they take drugs and substances?
Their judgment is impaired.
It affects
Their judgment is impaired.
their judgment is impaired. That is key, right? What happens when you take? Thank you so much for your answer. When you're taking alcohol, usually this part of your brain that does all the thinking, you can't think straight, right? Especially when you take different varieties of drugs, they'll impair your thinking, right? If you're taking hallucinogenic drugs, you might start seeing colors all around you, like everywhere, right? So all of these drugs will impair the way you're thinking. You'll not be able to think straight, right? And if you tell a person who's high, tell them to jump, they'll actually jump. And that adrenaline and the thrill of it, they might say, oh, come, we'll all jump, right? And maybe if the person is alone and they've gone through so much, and they'll be like, you know what, I think I just want to end it all. They walk on a ledge, they plunge, right? But that is not their rational self thinking about it, right? It's the substances influencing their judgment to not be able to think. So now, if the person comes to you and they have all of these things in mind, these are a few key things to note as a counselor, right? If the person coming to you is feeling suicidal, okay, do they take drugs? Do they take alcohol? Do they suffer from any other forms of depression that we need to look out for? Because all of these things, if they're all happening simultaneously, will overlap, right? We'll look at more, and all of these things at some point might overlap, right? Yes, Prem?
Ma'am, like, okay, if some person is in depression and being suicidal or something, like, we try to ask, we also, like, we are normally, generally, we could have asked, like, do you drink or do you, like, take something? Or maybe he just replies, yeah, I drink, but he meant by occasionally or something like that. So how we take that thing in the counseling?
Okay.
How we get to know that okay, that person is not drinking like for depression in his depression, but he just generally said it. So we should ask him in like precisely, right, regarding this thing.
Yeah. So the thing is, Prem, I was able to properly grasp what you were asking in the last bit because it was very muffled at the beginning. So I picked out that you were saying that we should ask them directly, right? Whether they're contemplating suicide or not. That's your question?
No, no, no. Actually, this drinking part I'm asking about. So, if a person come to me and for counseling and he's suicidal or he or she is suicidal, so I have to ask that person. Do I have to ask that person precisely that okay, what is the scale of your drinking? Do you do that occasionally, or you just like are you doing it because of the depression only? I have to ask it, right?
You can. Yeah. So when you're asking about drinking, and you know that the person is depressed, you can always ask them what is the reason for taking the drinks. Is it because of the depression or is it something else, right? It is, you can ask these questions, Prem. Sounds pretty okay to me.
And we also like uh can we tell them like if this even if they say occasionally, right, that I okay I do it in the weekends or something like that. So can we tell to a depressed person, okay, even if you do it occasionally, but avoid it at this time because it can raise something like raise some thoughts in you after drinking. So,
Mm,
do we have to like encourage him to stop it for a while so that he will not think his brain will not go running around with thoughts?
okay.
Like, do we have to get that much personal? So, basically,
All
my
right.
question is,
Mm. So the thing is, based on the last thing that you said, that is you giving them advice, right? Telling them that, okay, maybe don't drink it for a while because it might affect your thoughts. One thing that you can do as a counselor is psycho educate them on how alcohol is actually a depressant, which tends to amplify feelings of being depressed, right? So knowing that that alcohol is a depression, and if somebody takes it and if somebody is already going through depression, it amplifies that. That is how much that you can tell them, right? So what they decide to do with that information now solely becomes to them, even though if you know as a counselor that it's better for them to not take it, it's best to leave that, not for us to like push
oh,
it as something
yeah,
to.
I got the point.
Mm,
Okay.
okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay. Now, yeah, let's move ahead. The next one is mental illness, right? So, people who suffer from certain mental illnesses, right? Certain disorders, like people, the one example that's there in your book is schizophrenia. Right now, schizophrenia is a mental illness that affects the person through hallucinations. They can hear voices, they can see many things. Right now, if the person has a higher level of schizophrenia, because there's mild, moderate, and severe, usually the person would get medications because this is a clinical diagnosis, right? But sometimes those voices might tell this person to do many things, right? Now, if this person is on a higher risk, they might actually end up doing these things, right? So when you know somebody is already like this, they're usually most of the time under supervision, which means if they're in a rehab or in a mental health institution, would always be monitoring them. Or if they are alone at home, their family is being informed, right? So if you know that they're already having that, the voices in their heads are telling them that they have to kill themselves, the first thing that you do is contact the family or the caretaker, be like, okay, the client has said that they've been hearing voices like this, so just keep a lookout for them that they don't actually do it, right? Because they know that it's not theirs. Next is physical illness. So when people go through terminal illnesses, like somebody suffering through cancer or they're suffering through issues with the blood, sometimes it becomes really hard to want to get through life, right? And with that always comes those feelings of hopelessness, especially when you've been going to the hospital a lot. And it also depends on a person, how a person takes to it, but like these are also one of the common reasons why somebody might want to kill themselves, right? Next is feeling hopeless. Now, hopeless is something that is a term that one of the key things of anybody wanting to kill themselves. This is the first thing that comes, and this is the first thing that you can look out for too. Has the person felt like there is no hope for them anymore, right? Now, if this is the thing, you would our main goal as a counselor is to make sure that you are instilling hope in them again, right? Because when a person is hopeless, if you think that it's hopeless to cook or it's hopeless to go, like you'll not do it, right? For something as small as, like, now it's really hot, right? Like the sun is out, and you want to have cake from the bakery, but you're like, nah, it's okay, like the sun is too hot. So you don't have hope right now to go and get, maybe you'll go later in the evening, but you see something as small as that, you're like, it's okay, you'll not do it, right? Now, if somebody says that there's no hope in life anymore, now that's huge. It'll come with so many other different levels to it, right? They may feel like nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, nothing will change, my situation is hopeless, I don't see a way out, right? Heavier things, right? So just remember that hopeless is one of the key things that you look at. A person might be going through so much, but if the person has hope that things would get better, it pulls them through so much, right? Through anything that they may be going through. But if a person has lost hope, this is something for you to keep in mind of. Okay, just like asterisk or star mark that thing, because hope, losing hope is something that's key, right? Next is anger, right? If a person um, thinks that, okay, let me threaten somebody to, like, I would choose to like end my life or something. It could come as a form of a threat. Sometimes it might be really dramatic. Sometimes you see in the news that kids, like ninth grade, 10th grade, sometimes if they don't get mobile phones from their parents, they end their lives as a form of like punishment to their parents. Have you seen certain news clips like that? That is solely because of anger, right? They're not even thinking straight. Like you're ending your life for a phone does not make sense, right? So you can understand for certain things, there's a lot of anger that drives in, right? Next could be a sudden loss. Sometimes the shock of the things that you lose become too strong, so you might lose it. It could be in the form of maybe you lose your job, you lose somebody whom you love, accidents, something that's very sudden, right? You don't know, and you don't know what to do anymore, right? It could come as that. Next could be an embarrassment, or sometimes even TV, social networking, and sleep deprivation, right? All of these things can also lead to suicide, right? Now, let's quickly look at the different warning signs that can come. So, usually, one thing for us to remember that almost 8 out of 10 times, somebody who's contemplating suicide will talk about it, they'll bring it up, right? So it's not something that they may say that, oh, we didn't know. Like at some point, they will say something, right? They may say, I wish I was dead, or I'm going to end it. Or they might start talking about death. Or the next thing is they'll feel really hopeless, right? Again, I will say it once more. If a person loses hope, that is one thing that you need to look for. Mark it in your books, write it over and over again. But hopelessness is something that you need to be looking out for in a person, right? Especially if you know that the person is going through a difficult time, they're losing hope, something to look out for, right? Next is you may see that they've changed all of a sudden. Like suddenly they've become like really, really sad. Right? And the sadness like lasts for a while. Sometimes you might be sad for like 2, 3 days or something, like you've lost somebody, or like something bad has happened. All of these things make sense, right? But if it's gone beyond what is considered as normal, right, for a time frame, I know normal is also very subjective, but like if you think about it, so if somebody is coping from somebody's death, right, if somebody who's very close, like a parent, a sibling, a relative who's very close, might easily take a month and a half, right? But it's not to the point that they feel that, oh, now this person is gone, there's no reason for me to live. Are you understanding the difference? Okay. Next is if they're having trouble at school or at work, if somebody is constantly bullied, right? Somebody is constantly being abused at work, like verbal abuse, right? If the person has immediately started abusing alcohols or drugs, if they're withdrawing from other people, if they're starting to behave very differently, appetite has changed, sleep has changed, and another thing to look out for is if the person has been really sad for very long, suddenly one day they everything is fine. They become really happy all of a sudden. Now that is something to be aware of, because usually when they reach that point, they've decided, most of the times they've decided like, okay, I'm gonna end it. Right? So just one more day or something, like I'll just be happy. And it's like a very strange kind of happiness. Like you've been seeing them sad for 2 to 3 weeks, and then the immediate incline in their joy is like 10, right? Now, this is something to look out for. They might be giving their things away, right? They might be writing wills like, okay, I'll give this to you, this to you, this to you, and they're really happy about it. And they seem to be really calm, especially when you've seen them going through so much. Then suddenly they just become really calm. They're like, it's okay, it's fine, right? These are the things to look out for. Now, what are the things that we say when somebody is considering suicide? Firstly, as somebody in this space, everyone who says that I want to die, I want to kill myself, I want to come, is to be taken very seriously. Right? Whether they do it or not doesn't matter. If they've already said that I think I want to die, there's no reason for me to live. I don't think there's hope for me anymore. They might not outrightly say I want to die, right? They'll use all of these different sentences. It is a red alert, right? And the common misconception is that they may say that they're just using it for attention, right? But before you come to the point that, okay, are they actually using it for attention? Anybody saying that I do not want to live anymore, it's hopeless, I think like there's no point for me, a threat is a threat, right? It's supposed to be taken as a red alert no matter what, right? Next is you would have to show them that you are understanding that whatever problem that they're going through is serious. Maybe to you it's not so serious at all. You're like, in your head when they're talking to you, you're like, wait, there's an easy way out, right? There are 3 4 options that they can actually consider, but for them they're not seeing that, right? So help them understand that you see how serious this is as a problem for them, right? It'll help them understand that, okay, somebody actually knows how big of an issue this is for me, right? And remember that if somebody is coming to you like that, you might be their last hope of wanting to live. Most of the time they'll see it as the last resort. They're like, okay, let me try and see if this person understands me or not. If this person also doesn't, like, just let's just go, right? So that's one. Next is offer hope. Very important, very very important that you offer hope, because they'll see it as a very hopeless situation. Nothing is going to work out, right? And as a Christian counselor, this is something that you must also remember. Offer people hope, right? Because we know that there is hope. They need to see that there is hope, right? Hope doesn't leave us just like that. Why? Because our hope is Jesus, and Jesus doesn't go anywhere. He's always there, right? But when a person can't think properly, like they may not even be taking substances, but if your emotions are really high, you can't think logically anymore. You can't see the truth, right? You might be biased in your thinking. You might just be thinking towards one direction. Very important for you to offer them hope, right? Next is listen to them when they're explaining to you why they're contemplating suicide, right? And mostly they'll be like an either or situation, they'll not see a way out, right? So hear them out, listen to why they think that suicide is the way out, right? And what is making them feel that way, listen to their whole story. Maybe it might not make sense to you, and you're just like, I see you, like in your head you're like, oh, but there is a way out, but for them they can't see it, right, at that point. But hear them out, because most of the time when people say that, they'll be like, oh, but you can just do this, it's fine. You're cutting them right in the middle, right? So don't do that. Hear them out, listen to what they have to say. Next is, this is where it comes in as a counselor, where you show them different solutions that are possible, right? And one of the more important, especially if they're believers, God is there, right? God is there. So if God can move mountains, if God can do so many things to the people in the Bible, he can still do the same thing for you. He's still the same God, he hasn't changed, right? But remember that at that time, there's a high chance that they may be angry towards God. They're like, he's never there. I've prayed, I've asked, nothing is changing, right? Now, at that time, it's not for us to contest with them like, no, God is right, God is true, right? We know that, right? But be very kind and calm and gentle when you're approaching this, right? Because especially if it's a believer who's contemplating suicide, there's a high chance their anger is also directed towards God, because things are not changing. Like, where is this God? Who is God? He'll listen to everybody else but not me. So there'll be a lot of anger and resentment also, right? So help them process that, help them understand, because maybe it's their own thinking that is not allowing them to see that the other side of it, right? Because remember, when a person is contemplating suicide, it'll be very tough for them to see other options that they can consider, right? So just keep that in mind. Next is, if somebody is drunk or high on drugs and they call you, there's no point in you to counsel them. They'll not understand anything. So the only thing that you can do is make sure that they're safe, they're inside some place that they're fine, and they'll not do anything that is harsh that they might hurt themselves, right? For example, if it's alcohol and they're really high, they can't even walk straight, right? So it's important to make sure that they're safe and they're in a safe space. Like, just hear them out, talk to them. They might just be yelling and cursing at you also, but like, it's important for you to remain calm, because now you're the one who's like, okay, what's next, right? And also for you to assess, because if it's really in a grave danger, you'll have to make calls to their emergency contact, right? Whether it's their sibling, their parent, a relative, a friend, you'll have to inform them immediately, right? Because you can't handle this by yourself. You're somewhere else, right? You're not with them, right? So that's important. Next is, avoid all arguments with the person if the person is drunk or intoxicated, right? There's no point in, because it might just make things worse, it might escalate it, right? So one thing is, you keep calm first, right? You'll have to be really calm, be present, and guide them through. Next is, get them to talk with you or with someone else while you go over to the house. Like, if it comes to the point where you have to go there and get it done, make sure that somebody is also there with them, right? So maybe as things are done, like especially now with technology, you can always keep them on speakerphone and message somebody else and be like, get to them, get help ASAP, right? So all of these things are there. So the next is, in most cases, when these things are there, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that you're reaching the emergency contact ASAP, right? Because sometimes you might not be the closest person to get to them, right? Somebody else might be there close enough. For example, if you live like 6 7 kilometers away and their parents are just downstairs, speed distance wise makes sense for them downstairs to go up and check, right? Maybe you get a call, they say, I've cut myself and I'm bleeding. No point in you asking, why did you cut yourself, why did you do this? Few steps could be, okay, where did you cut yourself? Are you still bleeding? Is the wound closed? what's on your mind right now, what are you thinking about, right? Where are you in your room, are you in the bathroom? Okay, if they say no, I'm still bleeding, it hasn't stopped, okay, is there a towel nearby that you can clot the wound, right? Just tie it over you, right? And once they're fine, and they'll be panicking, right? If they're calling you. So it's up to you to remain calm. You don't panic with them not happening, right? So if they've cut themselves, if that's what they said, like, okay, where is the cut? In your head, you'll also understand that if they've cut on their hand, danger. If they've cut somewhere in their thigh or in their stomach, still okay. Not too much of a danger, right? If it's anywhere here, if it's in crucial spaces, where like life nerves are running through, these are a few key things that we need to check, right? So if they've cut themselves, okay, where is the wound? How deep is the cut? Okay, has it clotted? Is there water nearby? If they say yes, there is water, like, okay, can you just go wash the wound? One step at a time, like you're basically guiding them through it, right? Once they've calmed down enough, what happened? Did something happen? Did somebody say something, right? Is somebody there in the house with you? Who can you go talk to? Who can you be with so that you're not alone for the rest of the night? Mostly happens at night after 12 a.m. for some reason, right? So all of these things would come up, right? Next is you'll have to understand that because they've come to you, you're responsible now, right? And it's a huge responsibility to take in when somebody is battling through all of these things, right? So remember that when you're going through this also, you'll need a lot of patience, a lot of guidance, a lot of wisdom. The one person who can help you with all of that is God, right? If best is like if the person is like in the right state of mind, pray for them also. Because there'll come a point in time where maybe there's nothing that you can do. The only person who can actually help all of this is God Himself, right? So all of these things are to be kept in mind, right? So there are a few scriptures. When you look through it, we all know for a fact that God prohibits murder and killing yourself because with life and death, God is in charge, right? God knows when it's time for us to go, when it's time for us to still continue with life and do many things. But when it comes to suicide, we need to understand that it's a very tricky situation, it's very dicey. Again, if it's something that you cannot handle, please do not take it. It'll just cause more harm to the person, right? Because when you're dealing with such cases, you need to be in a level headed space to be able to help them out. You'll be the one who'll be able to think of many different options, right? For example, somebody calls and they say that they've cut themselves and you're bleeding and you're paranoid of blood. And then they said there's blood everywhere on the floor, then you'll not be able to think straight to help them, right? Because your goal here is to be like, okay, stop the wound, get them out of that place, tell them to put all the blades that they use in one box or throw them in the dustbin, go to their room, who's there at home, who can you talk to, right? All of this safety thing in your head, all like 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all steps, right? So you panicking, it's not going to help anybody anywhere, right? So remember, if something that you cannot take up, do not take up, because then it'll affect you. It'll cause more danger to the other person. We're good. Okay. Any questions before we close on suicide and we go on to drills? It's been a heavy topic, both classes. But any questions? No? Okay, I'll just stop sharing my screen. Okay, no questions? All right. Can everybody just like take a deep breath? Okay, can you all just like smile? Can see your faces here. Everybody's like little serious. All right. Let's move on to drills. I think we have time for one drill. So who's coming in as counselor, counselee today? Let's have somebody from the last row and the first row today. Last row, one of you. I think it's just two of you. So one of you can come, or if the two of you want to come, that also works. Both of you will come. Okay, perfect. All right. So for the students, and I will just take a little while to just move things around. They'll just like adjust the camera and things like that, and we'll practice drills. Okay. All right. So for today's drill, we have, can you just say your names for the class?
Hi guys, my name is Akash.
My name is Rajesh.
Okay. Rajesh and
Akash.
Akash. All right. So, unfortunately, the list of topics that I have also like little sad. But then before I go through my list, do any of you have a topic that you would want them to play out? Like any scenario? The reason why I'm asking is because my list is also a little sad, and we've just done like really heavy topics. So we can do something that's like a little bit more on the lighter side. Anybody has any topic that you want one of them to go through? Wife is not listening. Perfect. So, so the scenario would be your wife is not listening to you no matter whatever. Okay, but who's going to be counselor? Who's counselee? You'll be the counselee. So Rajesh is going to be the counselor. Okay. So Rajesh, do you remember the different things that you're supposed to ask and how you would start? Okay. All right. Let's start. Good luck.
Hi brother, what is your name?
My name is Akash.
What are you doing this time?
I'm doing great, thank you.
प्लीज आपका वो नहीं हो रहा है टॉपिक.
Ask what you doing here today. Why you came here today?
Why can you here today here?
Actually, my wife is not listening. Actually, my wife is not listening me. So this is the reason I came here to discuss.
Why happening this?
I don't know what happened, but I am observing, and few days she is not listening me.
Something going wrong in your lives?
Yeah, I remember one thing. One day he wants me to bring something like food, and I'm not able to bring it. So maybe that's the reason she won't talk much.
So you brought?
No.
So this is big problem. And
So you're supposed to bring. You're supposed to bring it.
so you go and bring.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
Okay. What does the class have to say with that interaction that has happened? I know the ones here they couldn't hear much because everybody was really soft. But the brief interaction was he came. He said that his wife has not been talking to him for a few days. He asks why, and he says because he did not bring food, and that's why she's choosing not to talk to him. So he said, "Okay, what did you say?" He said, "Next time you should just bring food." Right? Which I think would solve the problem, right? But you can go. But the key thing here is to help him understand that okay, maybe he has to bring food, right? So even though like sometimes no, this was a nice thing to do, but we'll have to remember that as counselors, that as counselors you might know that the easy way out, especially when it has anything to do with food, just give food, right? Like it'll resolve half of the problem. But if we take this case, remember that you are the one who needs to help them come to a point to make them realize that them not bringing food was the problem, right? So ask him, okay, maybe what do you think you should do next? So him bringing the food answer should come from him, right? But really good job. They did well. Okay. So, all right, let's just continue with that example for a bit. Now, if you were in the counselor's perspective, right, and a person comes to you and tells you that my wife is not talking to me, like it's been like my partner, right? My partner hasn't been talking to me for a few days. What would be your opening thing? What would you say? Actually, one thing that Rajesh also did, he said, "Oh, that is actually a big problem." He understood that this was an issue to Akash and it is a big problem. So he was reflecting how difficult it was for him. I don't know whether you guys got that, right? But that was a good thing that he did. He reflected that, yes, this is a big problem. Now, if you were the counselor, what would be your opening question? Just speak into the microphone also, whoever's speaking, so that the ones online can hear. Just speak into it, okay? The microphone is already given to you. Y'all can't say no. I am literally coming, I'm the counselor here. I'm saying my partner is not listening to me. None of the counselors are willing to help me. All of you are just looking at me in the face. Okay.
You give a specific day saying like she's not, or the partner is not talking to me from few days. So what happened few days before? Like
Hmm.
what did you, what happened between you both? If you can explain that to me, so then they would explain the scenario.
Right. So that's a very good way of opening first, right? Understanding, okay, they've said few days, what happened in that incident, right? What happened a few days before? Yeah?
Ma'am, go ahead, then I'll come back.
Okay. So yeah, ask what happened in a few days' time. Did something happen? Did some what were the different instances that opened there, right? Do you remember your open-ended questions and close-ended questions? This is where all of those things come. That's why I'm telling you to read, right? Read all of these things. If you do not read, it'll not register in your head, right? As much as practically there's so many things that it comes through practice, theory wise these are a few things that you'll have to remember, right? Remember your open-ended questions, close-ended questions, questioning them well, reflecting what they're saying, reflecting their meaning, their feelings. All of these things are really important. Sriraj, you can go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, the opening, like, they could have asked him how many years they've been married together. Is there any thing happened prior to this thing, before getting into this uh, struggle? And asking him whether she has easily taken it previously, or this is the first time that she is
Mm,
not talking to him for a long time,
yeah.
and explaining it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. The last thing that Sriraj said, right? Has this also happened before? Is this the first time that's happening? To identify a pattern, right? Yeah, all of you are nodding now. You all better do this when you all sit here during drills, okay? So we'll close here for today. And when we have our next class, we will be continuing further. Drills are going to be happening, okay? So be ready. It's for the ones who are done, you're done, but the ones who are not yet done, you will be called, right? And we will keep shuffling with the ones in person, the ones online will keep going back and forth. So please read all of the previous chapters, because the ones at the back, they're more very like, they're little theory oriented. You'll not really use them for practicing during the drills, but keep all of these things in mind, right? The open-ended questions, close-ended questions, reflecting, and don't forget that the person that you're talking to is a stranger, right? You'll have to take their history a little bit, right? Like what's your name, where you're from, what do you do? All of these things are equally important, right? So, okay. We'll close here for today. Would somebody want to close in prayer for the class? And none of them are looking at me in the eye. Whoever's closing in prayer, just take the microphone. Right.
Lord, we thank you for this session today, O Lord Jesus. Lord, as we have listened to the class, how to help people who are going through abuse and who have suicidal thoughts. Lord, we pray that you fill us with your wisdom, with compassion to help people, O Lord Jesus. Fill us with your strength. We pray this prayer in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Thank you so much for joining in today's class. Before you come in for the next class, please remember to eat.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.